Welcome everybody to the regular meeting, or it's a special meeting because we changed the time from 7:30 to 7 to make room for a public hearing on an application. This is a regular special meeting of the Roxbury Inland Wetland and Watercourses Commission for Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. So seating of the members, Rob, do you want to start?
Rob Horgan.
Andy Engel.
John Smoliga.
Sue Fitch.
Anybody else? Lenora? I know Olivia's not coming because she has an exam tonight.
Lenora's not online.
Okay. And then there's Sierra.
Sierra's not online either.
Okay, so we have a quorum. All 5 permanent members are on. Oh, there she is.
There she is.
Hi, Sarah.
How
How
are
are
you?
you? Good. We're
Good.
just starting the meeting, so.
Good.
So say your name, just for the record.
Sierra Gorglione, but I haven't been sworn in yet, so I don't know if it matters.
It does, but
Okay.
you can ask questions as a member of the public. But once there's a motion made, you can't ask any more questions. And
Got
that's
it.
the same when you're on the commission, unless you're seated. And when you get seated,
Conflict of interest.
when I seat you, it's usually because a voting member didn't show up or a voting member has a conflict of interest.
Oh, right. Seated. Got it.
So approval of the minutes of the regular meeting from January 26, 2021. Do I have a motion?
Oh, wait 1 second. So I left after I stepped down from the Hazeltine issue.
Yep.
And I didn't come back. And
Right. It was your
reseated me.
birthday. Happy birthday, Rob. Happy birthday.
Thanks. So I
How
left
old,
the meeting.
53?
Yeah.
Well, you can read
So
the
I'll
minutes, and
abstain, but also
it's
well,
better
so
somebody
it-
else.
Did I reseat you?
you did reseat me, even though
Okay.
I wasn't there.
That must have been for the adjournment.
No, it was for the there was a Good Hill Road was added to the agenda,
Oh,
which I
okay.
didn't know about. So I had left, so I wasn't there for that either.
That was a mistake. I can amend. Not a problem.
Anybody else with any comments on those minutes? I'll look for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Approval of the minutes of the public hearing and special meeting of February 4th, 2021. Any comments? I'll look for a motion.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Abstain, Russ.
Very good, John. Thank you. New business, a deep application for pesticide, or actually it's a herbicide application for Yearling Pond, 167 Tophet Road. To remind everybody, this is a deep permit to apply herbicides to a pond to kill the weeds. Margaret Miner and I, amazingly, years ago, decades, fought deep on this because we said the commission should have a say. They explained that they have their permit and we could have our permit. In other words, they're parallel jurisdictions. So we could deny these permits, but there has to be cause. But the reason why I went up against DEP on this is people could use these things to turn swamps into ponds, kill vegetation. Vegetation is within a wetland, is certainly within a wetland commission's right to regulate. They agreed with that. But Yearling Pond, is one of those where I think it's being used for what it should be being used for. And we really can't deny these things unless there's a good wetland reason, because it's their right to use. These things are legal. It's not up to us, it's up to the state. What happens is when these things, we don't approve or disapprove it, but we could say that we want a permit for this. We want a permit submitted to the Wetland Commission, and we're within our rights to do that. In this case, I don't think it's necessary. So in that way, we're being notified that DEEP has gotten this permit, and they will approve it unless the Wetland Commission notifies them. What we do is with these applications that make sense for the use, we send out this letter that I wrote, which tells them options and alternatives and things to look at, like your pond's getting all weedy, maybe because your septic system's failing or there's stormwater running into it. And unfortunately, as you can see there, I forget the road, it's Tophet Road. The town's stormwater drainage runs right into it, which causes oxygen to deplete and makes them have to do this so it doesn't become a septic system. There's no real stream going into it or out of it. I have no issue with this. Does anybody else?
I do not.
Nope.
Neither do I.
Okay.
No.
Sue, okay. All right, we'll move on to the next one. Good job, Julie. Wow,
Nice.
she's impressive.
Well, thank you. Let's hope we can keep it up.
You could take it off. I need to see the agenda.
Well, I got to go back to the top. Hold on. Let's see. There. How's that?
Okay, next is Squire Farm LLC, 157 South Street, single family dwelling.
So I will step down.
Rob will step down because he's the owner of Squire Farm LLC. So this is on South Street where the red barn is. But who used to own it, Robin? I mean, I can't believe the names.
The Squires,
Yeah, the Squires, great
Bud
people.
and Dory Squire.
But Bud and Dory, great people. I miss them. So even though Rob is stepping down, we still have a quorum because we have me, Andy, Sue, and John. So Sierra, make sure you get with Barbara and get get in so you could start being part of applications like this, because you would be seated right now if you were on the commission.
It's in process.
So Rob, you want to, this is the lot next door to
Sure.
the red barn, and the driveway was already put in. The commission approved the driveway maybe a year ago, Rob?
I think it was March of 2019. So it's 2 years ago. And the driveway was installed over the last year, finished up like last spring, summer.
So go ahead.
So the existing driveways on this map, although I can't really, it's kind of a faint line. So the application is for a single family house, which is shown on the map. It's a rectangle, approximately 60 feet long by 30 feet wide. So about an 1,800 square foot footprint. A slight relocation of the driveway at the top, because it'll have a drive under garage on the kind of the northeast side. So the circle that I have up there, I'm going to loop around and drive under the garage, under the house.
Yep.
And then there's a proposed pool on the other side of the driveway.
Yep.
Okay, and this also includes a septic system, which is not on the screen right now. It's down gradient. We can go to that in a little bit. There is a vernal pool, 175 feet, the closest point of it to the would be the northeast corner of the house.
Is that the only wetland?
Well, no, because there's a second vernal pool that's much farther away
Yeah, but that's
that-
the only wetland
on the property.
on the
Correct.
property. Yeah.
There is an intermittent stream on the southern property that gets to just about 100 feet from the proposed septic system. But that septic system, if can you go down a little bit farther, Julie? You'll see that you can see the vernal pool on the other lot, not the vernal pool, the intermittent stream on the other lot. And
Yep.
there's a 300-year-old stone wall separating them. And the distance is 100 feet from the septic system to that intermittent stream.
And
With
that's
that
cross
stone wall barrier
gradient, right?
between them.
It's cross gradient because it looks like everything's going downhill.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the flow of any water from the septic system doesn't get near it.
Okay.
But I want to go back to the house site, Julie.
So Rob, what's your limited disturbance from the house to the septic pool, vernal pool, sorry?
I want to go back there. So if you look, there's a ridge of ledge. Actually, it's that runs from the north to the south towards the house, and then kind of veers off towards the west. That is a great barrier between the house and the vernal pool. You know, it's kind of a fortress of rock between the construction and the pool. The disturbance of the house is situated between two kind of like there's in the front of the house, right. I don't know if my cursor's on this screen or not, Julie.
No.
Somebody's moving around.
Could
I
it
don't know
be?
if that's Julie or
It's Julie, I think.
Okay.
No, that's me.
Okay. So the house is situated kind of between the ledges.
Yep.
So over by the driveway side of the house, there's a ledge in the front, and then it dips down where the house is, and then it goes back uphill. And as you're heading towards the vernal pool. So my plan is to have very limited disturbance between the house and that big wall of ledge. And what I really want to do is I kind of want to situate it so it looks. I'm building a barn house, kind of an antique barn house on it. And my idea is to have it kind of look like Fitzgerald's house on Town Line Road. Not his house, the barn that kind of sits on the ledge.
Oh, okay.
So that's my idea. So there's not really anything landscaping wise or grading wise that's going to go on very far from the house. I will have to have room from the foundation for the to work for the forms. So I'm going to say maybe 10 feet from that back wall of the house.
Rob, where's the roof drainage going?
Roof drainage is
Downhill.
going. Yeah, it's going into that biodetention basin. Okay, you can see it coming down. And then there's a swale that goes along the upper side of the driveway, along that boulder wall where the stone wall is to the left, where that turn is. And if Julie, can you scroll down just a little bit? See that biodetention basin?
Yeah.
That's where the roof drainage is going.
Okay. Even though this appears to be non-regulated because everything is outside the 100-foot setback, and Roxbury does not have a vernal pool. Other towns have different setbacks for vernal pools. Some towns it's 500 feet. That's the recommendation from DEP, but every vernal pool is different. So I think this needs to be looked at by the commission, right? We need to set up a site walk. Whoever wants to go, if all of you want to go. Sierra, if you're on the board, and I'd be glad to walk with you on this.
I'll
Just
go
to-
take a look at it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to take a look.
All right.
So I will,
And the other thing, Rob, I think we need a letter from an environmental consultant on helping us understand how that vernal pool, its ecosystem, how it operates. Usually when you have a ledge like that, it will basically shield the vernal pool, but we need to know that from a professional who
I
needs
had-
to look at it to see if frogs and wood frogs and salamanders are mating it out there, because usually vernal pools are in very flat areas and they're little holes in the ground, and the ecosystem could expand out 500 feet, where I've been involved in other situations where they don't expand out more than 50 feet because of the geology and the geomorphology. So
there is a letter from Nutmeg Soil Scientists that I submitted.
okay,
They looked at it on Sunday with me.
and his conclusion,
Was that there would be no impact from the construction on the
Okay.
vernal pool.
all right. So
So,
just
so
to be
Rob, he
safe-
was able to tell that with the snow on the ground too?
yeah.
I'm sorry, what was that, John? Come out
He
on me.
was able to discern that even with the snow on the ground?
Well, he did the initial flagging. He's done all the work up
Okay.
here.
Okay,
So he's very, very familiar with it. He did it in 18, and he was back, this is his third time on the site.
okay.
Also, one other thing, at the 100-foot dimension from the vernal pool, I have placards every 50 feet. They're noted on the map.
What do they say?
Well, I don't have those placards. I'm proposing to install them,
Right.
and I haven't said anything. I was going to say wildlife area, protected area. I'm not sure if there's
Yep.
anything that we don't have anything standard on the commission.
No, but wildlife area, protected area, keep out's a good one.
Yeah.
Or hazardous waste dump, that'll get people out of there too.
I got a bunch of signs of that if you need them, Rob.
Well, infested with copperheads.
I'd say infested with ticks and
Yeah.
copperheads. That'll keep them out. All right, we'll do the site walk and we'll see you next meeting.
Okay, I just wanted to say, I will put just the 4 corner stakes in the house site where that's located. I'll do the center line of the relocation of the driveway,
Yep.
and I'll put the 4 stakes for the pool.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Rob,
Yes.
can we go up there at any time or?
Well, I occasionally do put the cable up down at the bottom. I mean,
So-
I mean, not all the time, but most times it's open during the day.
Okay.
But if you want to just give me a heads up, I'll make sure it's down for you.
Well, how far of a hike is it up?
So you'll love it. Walk up, but it's a beautiful hike.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So
No,
I'm dead-
But feel free to drive up also. I mean, if
Well,
you just
right
give me a
now
heads
you
up
don't
that,
want to, right,
leave me a
Rob?
message on
Isn't
my
it
cell.
all ice and stuff?
Yeah, I didn't plow it the
Yeah,
last
I
couple
wouldn't
storms.
drive up, Sue. I'd walk
Okay,
up.
well, I'll wait for a few weeks, but I just want to know if I needed to ask you otherwise I can just park down below and go up and walk
Yeah,
it.
but I think
Yeah.
we're gonna have warm weather this weekend. I think all the snow will be gone.
Okay,
But you're a hiker, Sue. You'd love to walk up it. Bring your dog.
Mm,
RJ's been up there, so. Okay.
Yeah, I drove up once in the fall
Okay,
when
thanks.
the chain was down. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I noticed a lot of people are using it as kind of a, ooh, what's up here?
Well,
So
I know.
be
I have a-
aware, Rob, put cameras up.
I have a trail camera up top.
Yeah.
It's amazing what I catch on it.
We'll look for it. We'll leave you a message.
Okay, we're good here.
All right, thank you.
I'll reseat Rob. What's next? Franny, are you here? Fran Hodges? Is John Cody here? There he is. Hi, John.
How are you doing? How you doing, Russ?
Good.
Good morning or good evening, everyone.
Good. Do you want to explain what Fran's up to? We
Yeah,
all know
sure.
Fran.
Sure. in
We all
brief.
know where he is. There's a lot next to his main business. That's an empty lot. A couple of years ago, he asked to clear it because he wanted to put a tree farm there. That's what his father had it doing. And he planted 5 trees, and then we saw a bunch of dumpsters being stored there, which is part of his dumpster business. So we had to stop him. It seems to be a constant battle. So apparently, how many truckloads of manure did he dump?
You couldn't count the truckloads. There was just a big pile. There was a blue container there. It could have been one, could have been more. I don't know. I just happened to get a phone call that day that he was actually digging in the brook, Fen Brook there. I drove by.
Was he digging in the brook?
No, he wasn't digging in it. He was probably about at the closest 30 feet away, 35, something like that. It appears that he knocked over a tree stump. There's a big stump on its side, and he was backfilling it with the manure from some other job site or something like that. Yeah, that was pretty much sums that up. That was the allegation.
What was his answer to?
Wow, that was wonderful. His employee was there. I stopped. He came out, and I told him, "Okay, you can, stop doing what you're doing." He was fine. The employee was great. The employee got on his phone. He must have called Fran because in a matter of under a minute, Franny was there, rather belligerent, swearing, not too good. So he continued on. I finally had enough with Fran. I told him that he needs to put up silt fence, hay bales, something along the lines to stop the spread of any infiltration into Fen Brook down there. He hasn't done that. He hasn't done anything. He did remove the machine from there, but there's still the manure spread all over the place. It's kind of horrendous.
Okay. And he's obviously not here, even though he was sent a letter. What's the date of that letter, John?
That letter went out, I believe it was the 17th. He should have gotten it on the mailed 18th, 19th. He definitely got the letter in time. I'm sure of it. I told him in person that he needs to go to the next meeting because he's going to be getting an NOV or he will be summoned to the commission.
But didn't he say he was putting the manure there to plant roses?
Yeah, that was his story. He said he's going to plant roses. But if we go back in time, in 2017, he got caught there digging in the same spot. The same situation happened, and he was saying he was going to plant evergreens or something there, which he never did. It was just another.
So somehow he must be taking manure from farmers and dumping it there. Is that what it looks like? Or
I can tell you he does have a dumpster towards Botsford where he does collect horse manure. We don't know where it goes. Deep doesn't know. No one seems to know where it goes, but safe to assume.
We approved that riding rink on Botsford you're talking about, John, with the condition that she haul the manure away in dumpsters, and I think she's been complying.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure she is. I mean, you can see the dumpster when you drive by full of manure, and we can only assume.
all right, Commission, what do we want to do? He basically gave us the thumbs up. We can't allow him to make that a solid waste manure dump. It'll affect the stream. We can't expect Deep to help because they don't help.
Well, I have to interject there, Russ. Deep is interested in what's going on here. It seems to be similar to the operation they had in Washington where he got caught doing the same thing.
So should we send a letter to the solid waste unit at Deep?
They're more or less waiting for our reaction, and they would work off of that. I would not hold my breath on their assistance, though.
Well, I don't need their assistance. He's not going to do this. End of story.
That spot where he's dumping, is that itself a wetland, or is it just within the regulated area of the water course?
It's within the regulated area. It's uphill. It's pretty steep going right towards Fen Brook there.
Yeah, no, I know where it is. I was just curious if those were wetland soils there as well.
I don't know. I don't think so. I was never tested. but I would assume no.
No, I don't, no, it's close to the stream.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
what happens in these situations, if you start burying manure, it causes bacteria to get into the groundwater, which is what feeds the stream.
Yeah.
So this is a serious situation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you think after he got caught, well, they never found that he was burying solid waste. That was the accusation, that he was burying solid waste, garbage, on his property in Washington, and that never came true. They did dig a bunch of test pits, didn't find it. It's just that he was storing a lot of dumpsters of garbage, would cause the neighbors to constantly smell garbage when he had no permit to do so. And it took deep, what, 2 years, John? They even
Well, this
actually
one-
with us, they wouldn't. We complained. They never helped us. It was their transfer station permit. We told them his permit expired. They still didn't do anything. It was a farce. But boy, when somebody in Washington complained, they got all over it. I don't know. Maybe that neighbor was some famous person, but I think we should issue a cease and desist order and order him to come back to a meeting. Where if he doesn't, then we're going to get into court, and I'm willing to go to court with this guy. He needs to stop. I don't know the rest of the commission's feelings on that. Kinda
I
tired
agree.
of him.
Yeah,
agree.
I agree.
I agree
I
also.
agree.
Now, if we issue a cease and desist order, we have to have a hearing, a special hearing, within 10 days. And I know with the public hearing that we've been going through and all the other stuff we've been going through, everybody's been spending a whole lot of time. Is everybody up to a special hearing on a date? Certain date?
Yeah, I'm open.
Yeah, that's what we have to do.
John and Karen, how long would it take you out to get out a cease and desist order?
I could probably bang one out tomorrow. Most likely, he will not respond to it or even acknowledge it.
But you sending these out certified mail, right?
First class and certified will do.
Yeah, where they have to sign a green card.
Correct.
Maybe we should have Gail send it out.
I could reach out. I could give her a buzz first thing in the morning, or even a little later tonight.
Yep. Then get back to me, and we'll get to Gail, and then we'll have a meeting. We'll send it out, and we'll notify the commission the night the meeting will be. It'll be
Okay.
Zoom. Sue, what's a good night for you? Because you're the one who's working nights.
It's hard to say, Russ.
Oh,
Sorry.
your schedule's different every week.
I mean, I always work in the evenings. I'm on Mondays and Wednesdays. And
So I'll try to make it a Tuesday and Thursday, and if you end up having to work, that's fine.
okay,
know,
all right.
we'll
Sorry,
cover it.
yeah, that's my
Yeah, we'll
thing.
have Olivia or Sierra able to help out, pitch in on that.
Okay, all right.
All right, is that it?
Russ, yeah, I could text her right now and get the ball rolling on that if you like.
Text who?
Gail.
Yeah, please.
All
She'll
right.
be on this call, I think. On
Oh,
the
yeah,
public
probably.
hearing, yeah. She might be on now. If she's not, we're in trouble.
I'm here.
Hi, Gail.
There we go.
Gail,
Right.
would you work with John tomorrow to issue Fran Hodges a cease and desist? He's burying manure within 100 feet of the stream, actually about 20 feet.
It sounds like what he did up in Washington.
Yeah, he doesn't learn.
Okay, yeah, John, I'll connect with you.
Sure, sounds
Thank
great.
you.
Gail. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, is that it? I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Bye.
Okay. Okay, the public hearing. Let's begin the public hearing on the Woods LLC. Karen, luckily you don't have to read the whole legal notice. That I would get up and go to the bathroom right now and probably come back with plenty of time. So go ahead and read what you're supposed to read.
Okay, here we go. The legal notice was posted on Roxbury's town website on February 8th, 2021. Roxbury Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission, notice of public hearing. The public is hereby notified that the Roxbury Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission will continue a virtual public hearing on Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. The description that we have read at all of the public hearings remains the same, so I won't read that again. The only other change on this was the Zoom information to access the meeting, which of course would change with each meeting. So that is the legal notice.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we'll reopen the public hearing. John is going to step out, right, John?
You got it.
And it is me, Andy, Rob, and Suzanne. Lenora's not here, and if Lenora is not here for this, then she's not going to be able to vote, and she would have to read all the minutes from the prior application. So it's going to be the four of us. I think I'm going to start out. So we have a quorum, and we have 4 members that have been sworn in, so to speak. So I'm going to start out with Mr. Smith. What I want to do, Chris, and Marjorie, anybody who has an objection, please. I think it is your turn to rebut. I know we had a lot of rebuttal last meeting, but I want to give you the first up to provide any information to rebut further. And you will have a chance to have a closing statement at the end of the meeting. So this would not be like you talked and that's it, you're done. I'm going to go to Ms. Shamsky next to see if the intervener has any other opinions. I have, I know that Ms. Shamsky submitted a letter, which we should talk about. Gail has something that she submitted today because the commission did ask Gail to look at the, based on Mr. Klein's statements that this was complicated, complex, and the town would have problems with the bonding and the easements. I asked Gail to look into that, and she sent a memo out today, which very clearly kind of answers those questions, and we'll have her talk. But Chris, would you like to go first?
For the record, Mr. Chairman, Chris Smith of Walter and Pearson on behalf of the owner applicant, and thank you and good evening, everyone on the commission and Attorney McTaggart and Madam Clerk. I don't know if we were still hearing from the intervener, Mr. Chairman, and if there is any new information, then I think Mr. Lancor and Mr. Kenny, when they respond, can incorporate their responses into that. I would have to defer to Attorney Shansky if there is additional commentary that they'd like to make. Otherwise, I think we'll just go back and forth, point and counterpoint, and you'll never end.
Right.
So if
are they here? I don't see them.
And I think Attorney Shansky they were in the middle of.
Oh, she's here.
I don't want to speak for Attorney Shansky. I see Marjorie there.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So okay, Mr. Smith, what you're saying is you'd rather they go first to see if there's any new information.
And then we can do one concerted response for you, one rebuttal, Mr. Chairman, and the commission.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Hi, Marjorie.
Good evening.
Go ahead. Is there any new information? We did receive your letter.
It was our understanding that indeed Mr. Smith would be going first this evening, and I think that is probably appropriate insofar as the likelihood that new information might emerge. I don't know. Mr. Klein is with me, Mr. Manson is with me, and And we do have some comments, especially about the documentation that Attorney McTaggart provided, but you know, if the chair is still interested in the procedures that you outlined, so are we.
Okay, sorry, my phone was ringing, so I wanted to. Okay, Chris, I think you need to. I think you were up next, and you should go forward with any other rebuttal. I will. Maybe it's best I do this. Ms. Shamsky submitted a letter, and I read the letter, and I couldn't find any changes to the letter that she submitted the last time she submitted a letter. So I can't tell personally that there's any new information that was in that letter. So I'm going to ask Chris Allen, our consultant. Did you read the letter, Chris? And do you see any difference from the letter that was submitted prior to that?
I did read the letter, and it seemed to me that it was more of a summation of the points that they had already brought up. I didn't see any new information in that letter that really hasn't been discussed already.
Okay. All right. So Chris, you're up. Chris Smith. Mr.
And I
Smith.
know your town attorney, Attorney McTaggart, has provided you with a proposed declaration. I don't know if we want to go through that first, Mr. Chairman, because that does address quite a bit of the issues that we've heard from the intervener. And then maybe when we do our presentation, we can pull some of that together.
Great idea. Gail, would you discuss your memo with the commission? The commission requested you to evaluate these legal matters, which isn't really wetland related, but it could be. And those legal matters have to go to easements and construction bonds and maintenance bonds. To remind the commission, the applicant has proposed a construction bond, but there was talk at the last hearing about maintenance bonds. And Mr. Klein made the point, and I think it was a great point, that that kind of makes things complicated. If one neighbor gets in an argument with another neighbor, I'm not going to fix that stormwater thing that's on your property that feeds my property. So Gail, go ahead and explain this to the commission, please.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. And good evening, everyone. What I looked at was whether we could put together a declaration of easement that would provide for long-term care of the stormwater treatment train. And that was particularly important because, as pointed out by, I think, both the applicant and the intervener, there are several lots that have a connected treatment train that goes from one lot to another, and then eventually there's drainage across the street into parcel B, which is not part of the subdivision. So the question was whether there could be both funding to take care of that or to ensure that that's maintained the way it's approved and set out, and how that might work. There's two different things going on here. Bonding is different than the declaration of easement with a funding that's involved in it also. So there's the original construction of the stormwater treatment facilities. And if they're properly constructed, then the next step is that the individual lot owners have to have a system to take care of that. I've been involved with stormwater easements for stormwater treatment throughout, I guess, my many years of representing municipalities, and also in some cases representing developers. And I did a little bit of informal study online to look at different communities and to see how this was being handled. And in addition to communities that are in our area that do provide for stormwater treatment easements to ensure long-term maintenance, I found a very excellent online form that's used in Greenwich that's a standard form that they use. I'm assuming it's revised on a case-by-case basis, but it's a sample standard form that's used to do exactly this. So I, instead of trying to just revise what was submitted, I tried to put together a document that I thought would do the best protection for the community and the wetlands in this case. So what I did is I actually provided, put that document together, which was helpful in trying to see whether there were some inability to accomplish the kind of protection we're looking for. And I think one of the issues was raised is bonding is usually for a certain period of time. So for a number of years until the work gets done and then bonds get released. The other type of bonding that is letters of credit have definite timeframes on them. And we're looking for something that's in perpetuity on these lots, that these storm drainage systems go in and protect the stormwater train to protect the wetlands forever. So there had to be a perpetual system in the document to do that. So I came up with a document that does the things that I set out in my memo, and I put a memo in about this. But first of all, it occurred to me that the declarant needed to construct all of these facilities that were in the common elements, where there were common elements between lots 2, 3, and 4, had common elements draining down to parcel B. All of those stormwater facilities need to be constructed up front. And I analogize this to the construction of a road, where we would not expect individual lot owners to be able to get together to do that and to get it accomplished. So the first step was to make sure that that would happen first. The second step was that building permits, zoning permits, shouldn't be issued until all of that was in place and a declaration of easement is recorded and everything's in place to put out a system and a regime for taking care of those systems, and that system had to be joint so that we didn't have one owner pointing their finger at the other owner, pointing their finger at the other owner. It was a common requirement to take care of the system, which is, it's a common system, so that makes sense. And again, that's not unlike a private community that takes care of a road and everybody has to participate on their equal share to take care of that. So we ended up with lots 2, 3, and 4 being responsible for the stormwater system, including the stormwater system that's on parcel B. So that all had to be in place. And then one of the good ideas I thought from Greenwich was that document, that once the construction took place, there would be a as-built survey that would be filed, and it would show precisely what was built and what was there, where it was. So that as-built system would be incorporated by reference into this document, so that when anybody buys a lot, they know precisely what's on their lot and what it is that has to be. So, so that was the starter for it. The other parts of it were that a fund had to be put up, that's a permanent fund to take care of this. And the amount of that fund, I'm not an engineer, so whether the amount of, I came up with $8,000, which was $2,000 per system. It could be that should be $10,000. It could be, it should be $12,000. Perhaps it should be $6,000. We'll need some engineering advice on and bids for perhaps for what makes sense. But the other part of that was that's the initial amount. And then as each lot is sold, there would be a $2,000 amount that had to be paid in for each lot so that fund could grow. If the fund gets down to $4,000 at any time because it's used for maintenance, inspections that are required, the maintenance that has to be done both on a regular basis and scheduled maintenance, all of those kind of things would be funded through this. And it's set up so that if it gets exhausted, it has to be replenished, not unlike what happens with some kinds of security funds that are put up for leases and other arrangements that are legal arrangements where funding has to be replenished. So that was another requirement. The enforceability, I allowed and set out that the lot owners can enforce this among themselves. If one lot owner is not participating, they can enforce this and they can get legal fees if they're a prevailing party. The town can also enforce it, or the town has a discretion to do that or not do that. The wetlands regulations right now, and any wetlands permit that's issued is enforceable through the wetlands regulations. But this is another layer that these owners and the declarant, the owner of the development before the lots are sold, all agree that they will do these things, do this maintenance the way they're supposed to do it. And if they don't do it, that if the town has to come in and do that, that it'll be funded by them, including attorney's fees and costs, and the town can lien those properties if that does not take place. I guess the complexity of it seemed to resolve as I took a look at some of the agreements that are out in Connecticut and are being used, and I think it can work. It has to be. The construction needs to be done correctly. There need to be inspections. I've afforded for the town engineer to sign off on the construction when the construction's done, so that before any lots are sold, there will also be an engineering evaluation to make sure that it's constructed and gets all started off correctly. And then the second look, I guess, before individual owners can take this over for construction, is that the building permit and zoning permits can't be issued until this is in place. The applicant provided a sequence of construction to the extent that the recommendations that I have regarding build everything first before you convey lots, and then no building permits and zoning permits until that's done, to the extent that that is more restrictive, the commission would have to agree that the sequence of the construction that are set out would have to comply with that requirement. So I think that's an overview of what's in the agreement. It provides for enforceability. It provides for a fund for long-term maintenance. It provides for initial construction, a requirement that there be as-built plans in place that clearly show where everything is constructed, and that all the requirements that are set out in the wetlands, many pages of wetlands guidelines and plans that are set out in these plans are actually followed. And those are incorporated by reference into the agreement.
Gil, who would pay the town engineer? We don't have a town engineer.
The applicant, it's a town consulting engineer. I didn't make it the town engineer, it's the town consulting engineer.
Okay.
And that would be paid by the applicant.
Okay. To the commission, you need to ask questions tonight, or because if the hearing did get closed, I don't know whether it will or not, but you need to ask questions, because once, I'm just reminding you, once the hearing is closed, we can no longer ask anybody any questions except for Gail. So if you have questions tonight, please ask them to help you in your mission to use the 6 reasons why we make decisions, which I remind all of you to take a look at the 6 reasons our decisions are based on, again, in our regulations, so we refresh our memories, okay? Thank you very much, Gail. Chris, Mr. Smith, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I could just correct one thing. You can ask me questions after the hearing is closed, but they have to relate to material that was discussed at these hearings. It can't be new.
Okay, thank you. And Sierra, you could ask questions as a member of the public right now, which is fine for you to do that. Okay, so if you have any questions, then feel free. So go ahead, Mr. Smith. I'm sorry.
And the little one can ask questions too, Mr. Chairman.
Now you know why my video is off.
That's okay.
Multitasking
enjoyed
over
that.
here. Thank you, though.
You appreciate that as you get older, trust me. Mr. Chairman, I know that we heard that Attorney Shansky and Mr. Klein have comments on the document, so I'll defer to Attorney Shansky and Mr. Klein on that. But I think just to keep focused on the declaration, I know Mr. Lancourt, there was with the bonding, has some thoughts on that relative to numbers. I don't know if Land Tech does, but and then we might want to hear from Attorney Shansky if they have any comments on the declaration. We can respond to that directly. But we think it's a very well drafted document, and don't have any real comments on it other than addressing some of the issues that Attorney McTaggart just raised. Thank you.
Ms. Shamsky, do you have any, or your
I do.
being
With
there?
all due
Yep.
respect, I envision that this is the kind of documentation that would be necessary to colonize Mars. The enforceability question looms extremely large. The effort to not have a homeowners association leaves this with a very random probable efficacy, because the real result of a homeowner not contributing at the point at which somebody determines there's not enough money there is for everybody to stop paying into it. So the really only enforcement mechanism that will exist is upon the failure of the stormwater system for the town to have to step in and then seek to remedialize whatever's transpired. So I have never seen anything as bizarre in my life. And I understand that the fact that it exists in other locations hasn't also included the testimony that it's been found to be effective in other locations. I'd like to know about all of that. But in this situation, it has no stewardship. The idea that buying a lot means that I'm now going to be on a bank account with my neighbors is a repugnant notion and opens up all other kinds of questions of liability, because there's no homeowner association. Perhaps there's one de facto, but if there were one de jure, it has all kinds of mechanisms through which enforcement can occur, and liens and collection and formalities. So why one would want to leave this to chance? It operates in a universe parallel to the one in which the function of the stormwater system is going to operate, that it's mystifying to me. Perhaps Mr. Klein has something else to say.
Mr. Chairman, can you all hear me?
Yes.
It's been my experience over the last 40 odd years that in a case like this, these systems we have a long private culvert under and parallel to the state highway. We have 12 individual underground treatment units. That includes some that are double, but there are 12 different pieces of concrete in the ground, all of which will fail without regular inspection and maintenance. None of these measures provide any particular benefit to the owners who are responsible for them. They provide a benefit to the wetlands, largely wetlands that are located on the other side of the state highway. The need for maintenance will not be obvious. These are not like septic systems where failures are obvious and disgusting, and homeowners are motivated very quickly to resolve them. So based on my experience conducting these kind of inspections and my experience as a wetland commissioner, it's reasonably likely that these systems will not be properly maintained by individual homeowners. I see no reason why the applicant has rejected the alternative of creating a homeowners association to ensure the long-term maintenance of this stormwater management system. I'm not qualified to opine on the costs, but it seems to me that $8,000 is a very low number to maintain all of these. We have 4 basins. We have the long length of culverts. We have rain gardens, and we have these 12 underground units. Seems like $10,000 or $8,000 doesn't remotely approach the fee that would be necessary. The bond that's proposed, as Gail was quick to point out, and we heartily endorse her position if you do approve this thing, the bond is far less than what's necessary to install these entire systems. It doesn't include the cost of completing the entire drainage systems for the lots. It does not include the cost of converting the sediment traps to the stormwater management basins, which require removal of all the sediment, installing a special biofiltration mix, seeding and mulching. The bond that the applicant has given you does not include the cost to build, restore, or finalize basins 2 and 3. These basins drain to basin 1 and 4, and so they must be built and finalized before basins 1 and 4 can be finalized. It only included the cost of preparing aprons on 2 of the driveways. I'm not quite sure what an apron is. Certainly didn't include the cost of drainage, didn't include the cost of the first 300 feet, which was what was in the phasing plan prepared by the applicant. I think that lots 1, 4, and 6 also discharge to wetlands and water courses, and they include stormwater management measures, some of which I've detailed to you, which are costly to install and maintain. So I believe those costs should be included in a bond estimate if you approve this property. But I have one other important point that I'd like to make. The applicant's construction sequence is fatally flawed, similarly to many of the other representations we've had that these designs were perfectly adequate. The construction sequence is fatally flawed. The erosion and sediment control plan calls for the basins to be cleaned out and finalized after all the lots are developed. But if they're not converted to their final configuration until after all the upslope work is completed, they will not protect the wetlands and water courses downslope. In other words, if the basins are not completed and finalized, they won't be treating pollution, so that if discharges of pollutants occur from lower properties, from the lower lots, they won't be treated. On the other hand, it's kind of a catch-22. If you convert basins 1 and 4 to their final configuration during the initial construction, they will be compromised by the sediment generated as basins 2, 3, the driveways and the homes are constructed. So if you proceed with this in its current state, I can't urge you strongly enough to include the installation of the driveways and all of the drainage measures in the bonding, and that you get a detailed estimate from your consulting engineer on the costs of maintenance of these systems, and include the costs that would be played out over the several years, probably the first 5 years, and that would give you a basis for replenishing that. It seems like an awful lot of effort to go through when most of this could be solved by creating a homeowners association, which is certainly an alternative. I will note that our most recent letter just summarizes some of the other concerns we have, but the proper treatment and management of erosion and sediment control measures and long-term stormwater management measures are critical. Without as foolproof a system as possible, it's my opinion that this proposal will result in, is reasonably likely to result in long-term adverse impacts to the wetlands and water courses down gradient. There are alternatives. There's a 4-lot alternative. There's no valid reason that's been suggested for rejecting that. There's no valid reason that's been suggested, no apparently any serious consideration of getting a variance to allow for common driveways, which would substantially reduce the amount of construction required and reduce the complexity of the system. And finally, the suggestion that the prior proposal that was denied by this commission is an alternative that was worthy of consideration is just well, it's on, I don't even know what to say about that. That's completely unacceptable, and therefore, in my opinion, the feasible and prudent alternative analysis is deficient.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, Mr.
No,
Manson.
he made a lot of comments, and the commission gets lost when people start just keep talking and talking. He made a lot of comments, and I'd like to get answers from the applicant. Mr. Smith, you heard his comments about a homeowners association. You heard
Certainly.
Mrs. Shamsky's comments about a homeowners association. I would like the question answered as to why that's not an option.
Well, two things, Mr. Chairman. Although I was not involved in either one of the first application nor the beginning part of the last one, I'm advised that that the interveners opposed the homeowners association with one of the last go-arounds, and now we're hearing that they would like to see one, and we haven't heard anything different than we've already heard over the past number of hearings that I've been attending. But more importantly, with the homeowners association, as Mr. Klein indicated, he's not familiar with the documentation, but under the Common Interest Ownership Act, there's a whole slew of documents. But the bottom line here is to come up with a framework that would bind the property owners to maintain the systems, and that's exactly what Attorney McTaggart has done, including those property owners, those lot owners. And I would respectfully suggest there's no need for a homeowners association. There are only a few lot owners, and they're covered for in Attorney McTaggart's declaration. I would like to point out that there really is no need to have a bond for all the improvements. Most of the improvements under the sequence and as provided in the declaration that Attorney McTaggart has provided you with have to be installed before building permits are even issued. In fact, some of them have to be installed before a lot can be sold. So just like with a road bond, when you have a large subdivision, you might need that bond because you want to make sure that the road gets built when lot number 20 at the end is sold and there's a road there with all the levels of base pavement there. You don't need that here. That's all provided for in the documentation that Attorney McTaggart has provided you with and provided us with. And we went through it in detail, and we think it works. And again, there's no need for a homeowners association that, from what I understand, the interveners opposed last go around. The structure of the declaration basically provides you for everything that you would have in the homeowners association: the ability to lien each other, to sue one another, to collect for your fees and costs. That's all built in. And more importantly, that you don't get in a homeowners association, the town has those rights and those protections built into the declaration that's been drafted. So those are our comments, Mr. Chairman. We think the declaration works. It's an appropriate substitute for a homeowners association. It actually gets the commission in a better position in the town and actually protects the wetlands from a better position than having a homeowners association for 3 lot owners, which makes no sense.
Why isn't a 4-lot subdivision a feasible and prudent alternative? I guess that goes along with the question of why can't drainage on each lot be done on each lot separately? I think that's something that's weighing on my mind.
Okay.
Hey, Russ,
Sue?
I had a question though, going back to this homeowners association, if I can, before.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry. I should have.
No, that's okay.
Anybody have questions on the homeowner association? Go ahead, Sue.
Because I really don't think that it was not answered. It was deferred, that what Attorney McTaggart came up with, the declaration, but I don't believe that Christopher Smith really answered why they ruled out the homeowners association. And my question too, isn't that placing the declaration undue burden on the town and undue burden on the commissions?
To answer your question, Madam Commissioner, no. Actually, the declaration puts all of the burden on the lot owners, just as it would with a homeowners association. And it actually provides specifically for what you are looking for here in this declaration. A homeowners association would require all sorts of condominium documents that would have to be drafted. There's no reason for that. You're looking and you've asked Attorney McTaggart to look on how best to address your concerns and the concerns that have been raised by the interveners, this declaration does it. And it provides as a bonus, which you wouldn't get with Kiowa documents. And when I say Kiowa documents, I mean a homeowners association. The town has the ability, and as Attorney McTaggart has indicated, not the responsibility, but the ability if the group of lot owners, AKA the homeowners association of 3 lot owners, weren't doing their job, the town can come in and do it, and they can be paid for it. Homeowners association wouldn't provide for that. And you would have needless documentation that would not address any of the issues provided and addressed by attorney, the 8 pages or 9 pages in the declaration that's before you. So I'm trying to answer. I mean, there's no reason to have homeowner or Kiowa common interest ownership documents, which I understand the interveners opposed the last go around. And the way to address the issue, and I, like Mr. Klein, I sat on a commission for 16 years. I served on the General Assembly's Inland Wetlands Task Force. I was appointed. There was supposed to be 1 member on that task force from a Wetlands Commission, and I was appointed for that slot. And I would not be indicating anything to you that I didn't think was appropriate for protecting the wetlands. And I think that declaration is spot on. It's exactly what we've been asked to do, and the commission's been asked to do, and and it serves its purpose. That's the best way to address it.
But I still think the question is you're evading the question, because prior to the last meeting, when we were asking our town attorney to look at some issues, you did not come up with, you were not coming up with a feasible alternative of having the homeowners association. And I just want to know why.
Because again, we submitted a declaration to you to address those issues that are your concern. And you, as the chair indicated, instructed Attorney McTaggart to look into that. And Attorney McTaggart came back with a very comprehensive declaration that will address and it binds those lot owners, 3 lot owners that would be in a homeowners association in a very specific way relative to the what you're trying to achieve, and that's the drainage systems, which you wouldn't get you don't get with a homeowners association. And this way you have that, and you have the ultimate, you have an additional tool that you would not otherwise have, Madam Commissioner. I don't know which one you are. I don't know if it went blank. And I apologize. I just would like to look at you when I'm speaking to you. But otherwise, and you wouldn't have that in a homeowners association. The homeowners association is another red herring along the lines of what we heard. And what we keep hearing is it's reasonably likely that nobody's going to maintain these systems. And that's been the claim from the opposition all along, the interveners all along, is that these systems are going to fail because nobody's going to take care of them. When they fail, they're going to have an adverse impact. Well, that's not the standard. That's not wetlands review in our state. Otherwise, nothing would be built. And I'll come to that later, but I'm trying to be responsive to you. The declaration is what you want. A homeowners association is needless, and it doesn't address and provide the protection to the commission or the town or the wetlands that you get with the very comprehensive declaration that your town attorney has provided for you. And I don't want to speak for Attorney McTaggart, but again, last go around should have a homeowners associate. No, that's not going to work. Now we do it. We do this declaration, which is spot on. And now we're here. Well, there should be a homeowners association. What are we going to do? Just incorporate the declaration? That's what's before the commission. And that's really, I would respectfully submit, that's what you should be, that's what you should jump on. And I think what Attorney McTaggart, we're just pretty exhausted at this point. We've tried to be responsive to everything we've heard. And every time we do something, we're told it should be something else. So, and I'll let Attorney McTaggart can certainly explain to you, Madam Commissioner, the difference between the two. But I would respectfully submit that the declaration, for the reasons that I said, is spot on. And there's no need for a homeowners association. Again, another red herring.
All right, we got it. Gail, why didn't you recommend to the commission a homeowners association and instead write a memo on your declaration?
There's a single purpose for this arrangement between these owners, which is the maintenance, long-term maintenance and repair of the system. Homeowners associations quite often have other shared interests They might have open space. They have a budget that's a large budget that they vote on annually. There's a lot of bylaws, regulatory requirements, administrative requirements. That part
Okay.
of this didn't seem that difficult.
Yep.
They could, by the way, have a homeowners association.
Okay, thank you.
There's nothing that prevents that.
Right. Any other questions on this, on the homeowners association issue? From the commission? Okay. So the second question was that Mr. Klein brought up, is the feasible and prudent alternative would be 4 lots. And part of that question for me is, why couldn't the drainage for each lot be on each lot? I think Mr. Lancourt explained that before, but I think I need it said again. So if you will.
I'll defer to Mr. Lancourt on that one, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening. For the public record, Mark Lancourt with Dymar, principal engineer, located 800 Main Street South in Southbury, Connecticut. To your question, Mr. Chairman, is every property has unique characteristics. It's not like we're all sitting with the same piece of property. That's what's unique about land. Land differs in terms of its shape, its forms, its geology, its soils, its makeup, its soils, its slopes. And when you look at the development of each one of these lots, you look at where the best locations are for siting a house and the facilities, whether it's a septic, a well, a driveway, etc. And when you pull all that together and then you look at all the components that you're dealing with, you have to find locations of which make sense. They're realistic in terms of locations of facilities. And in this case here, some of those locations may differ where one lot affects the drainage of another. And in keeping with that, one of the things that we stated at the very outset was, natural drainage patterns. So a lot of what you're seeing where these basins are following natural drainage patterns. And if a natural drainage pattern from one lot interferes or it goes over another lot, it's inappropriate from a planning standpoint to actually try to, what I consider, manipulate a lot to account for something on that lot. You actually do more destruction often when you do that. So as a planner and a civil engineer and somebody who's been doing this for over 40 years, I find it inappropriate to try to manipulate a lot to try to accomplish something. I look at it in terms of where it fits. And here the layout fits the way it fits. And then you deal with the solutions that we're talking about now in terms of how to manage it. And I think, and it's my opinion, the applicant, our consultant team have gone great strides to make sure that all those components are protected. They're going to be constructed correctly. They're going to be operated and maintained correctly. And the mechanisms that are being put in place are here, and they will protect the wetlands and watercourses.
Okay, we got that. How about why not 4 lots?
Well,
But when you look at
Mr.
the
Chairman,
lots, and I asked the question. Go ahead.
Mr.
Go ahead,
Chairman,
Chris.
I know that Mr. Kenny has another meeting. I was on another one in Fairfield, and just to show you how small the world's gotten, I was there, and my client and I had worked on that one, a housing proposal, and rather large one. And Mr. Trinkus is there this evening filing on behalf of someone on the other side. So I know Mr. Kenny does have to leave for a hearing in Harrison, New York. So it might be an appropriate time, and we can address that with the alternatives to have perhaps our rebuttal. I don't think we've heard anything really new from the intervener with Mr. Klein. So if you'd like, Mr. Lancourt can go, and then we can hear from Mr. Kenny, and then they can both respond to your questions, and I can respond to your specific question after. And I think Mr. Kenny and Mr. Lancourt will be giving you a basis for what I'll be saying. With your permission, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Mark,
this
you're up.
is, I'm going to basically, I'll give you my final comments. So, and again, for the record, my name is Mark Lancourt, Principal Engineer of Dymar, registered as a professional engineer in Connecticut, as well as with more than 40 years experience in the field of civil engineering and site planning. So to recap, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, the application before the commission is a large lot, low density subdivision encompassing just 6 lots on 64 acres with 10 acres of preserved property. The proposal protects a vernal pool that was highly contested in the original 2017 11 lot application, and including retention of the 206 North Main Street lot. The application is a significant improvement over that application with a 50% reduction in lots, going from 12 to 6, ranging in size from 6 acres to 26.1 acres. The net impervious coverage on the 64.8 acres is 2.57%, an insignificant increase to the overall watershed. This proposal directly addresses every concern the commission, opposition party, and Land Tech has raised from the original 2017 application through this application received on December 2020. The most recent information submitted on January 28th is in response to requests and questions raised at the January 5th, 2021 hearing. To summarize, there are no significant changes to the plans, with minor alterations made to basins 2, 3, and 4 to address the layout of the respective forebays. We provided details already shown on the plans, a document that highlights the proposed sequence of construction narrative targeted to lots 2, 3, and 4, included 3 prudent and feasible alternative concept plans, updated tables 4 and 9 in the drainage report, and lastly, provided a construction cost estimate for the common elements associated with lots 2, 3, and 4. On February 18th, we submitted evidence of what E&S controls were included in the artist excavation construction estimate, with a recommendation of adding $10,000 for the other costs that they did not include. As the commission will recall, under the previous application submitted in June 2020, the commission unanimously made the determination the project proposed no significant impacts at their meeting of 6/23/20 that included 0.51 acres of disturbance in the upland review area. Not once, but twice the chairman had put this question out to the members. That determination did not change with each polling of the members at that time. Under the current application, the disturbance of 0.49 acres in the upland review area, this determination was reversed for a project of lesser impact, having also satisfactorily addressed the third-party review comments made by Land Tech under the prior application. The current subdivision plan is essentially the same as the prior application when it was withdrawn in November 2020. The majority of the physical impacts under the June 2020 application, and similarly now, occurs just at 2 locations. At lot number 1, along a fill slope with no impervious area draining to the wetlands. And on lot number 4, with conversion of the existing house to a functional BMP vial filtration basin. The application continues to pose no direct impacts to wetlands and watercourses. There are no irretrievable and irreversible loss of wetlands caused by the activities, either in the short term or in the long-term horizons. Furthermore, the third-party review consultant Land Tech has drawn the same conclusion. The applicant has fully complied with Section 7 of the regulations. in particular section 7.5 and 7.6. The third-party review consultant Land Tech has drawn the same conclusion. It is our professional opinion that the commission has enough evidence to close the hearing and vote in the affirmative to approve the application. The development of 6 lots and 64.8 acres proposes 1, activities with de minimis direct impacts to the upland review area. 2, has been determined by the applicant's expert testimony and by the record, as well as by Land Tech, the third-party consultant, that the proposal will not have any adverse environmental impact on the wetlands and watercourses. 3, that there are no prudent and feasible alternatives that would lead to a lesser outcome, as there is no environmental adverse impact created by the proposal. And 4, the public and the interveners' experts had provided no factual, technical evidence that would be the basis to suggest a different outcome, only opinions. This now leads me to the testimony provided by the interveners' experts. The written and verbal testimony by Mr. Klein and Mr. Trinkus has often created a misleading picture, framed from speculation to imply potential impacts without any hard evidence to either quantify the impact or define where it would actually occur. Mr. Trinkus went on to say at the January 13th hearing that he did not look very deeply, and I quote, into the hydrological study of the drainage report, which the commission should then question the legitimacy of his testimony if the depth of his review was selective and not complete. His letter of January 6th, 2021 makes various comments that are just not true. If he completed a thorough review, perhaps he would draw some very different conclusions. For example, he infers that we took credit for groundwater recharge volumes in basins 1, 2, and 3. It is clearly stated in the drainage report, and it is documented on table 11 that we took no such credit. It also stated at the January hearing that the basin number 2 discharges into basin number 3. That was falsely stated, and it does not. What is most egregious is at the hearing of February 5th, Mr. Trinkus testifying again that the basin forebays were not properly designed, only to learn at the hearing that they were modified. If only he had taken the time to review the plan revisions submitted on January 26, 9 days prior to the hearing date, the discussion might have been more meaningful. As Mr. Klein has often said, the devil is in the detail. So true, I do agree. But a thorough examination of all the details is necessary if you're going to provide a credible opinion. Land Tech has provided that thorough examination, providing an independent, credible opinion that is consistent with the applicant's position on the application. And I conclude, no adverse environmental impacts to the wetlands or watercourses. Mr. Klein continues to suggest the applicant has not provided a reasonable path to constructing the project, leading to events that are going to have an adverse impact. Again, he and Mr. Trinkus have failed month after month after month to show any factual or quantifiable evidence that may lead the commission to a different outcome. In reality, this is a simple project, not as complex as Mr. Klein suggests. It is a low-density 6-lot subdivision on 64.8 acres that has driveways, houses, septic systems, wells, and stormwater devices that include basins. Yes, basins. These components are not unusual and occur in every project around the state and country. Nothing is complicated here. The proposal does provide a very detailed sequence of construction, monitoring, and stabilization plan that will lead to a successful outcome. As Land Tech has stated in their letter of February 1st, 2021, and I quote, "A supposition that a design element may not function properly or could fail is simply not enough in our opinion, end quote. Speculation is not a cause and effect theory, but facts are. And the only factual evidence in the record that can claim an outcome is one of no adverse environmental impact. And that is what has been provided by the applicant, not by the interveners. The application satisfies the principles of the Connecticut DEP Erosion and Sediment Control Guideline Manual. The third-party review consultant Land Tech has drawn this very same conclusion. The intervener or the public has never offered any serious specific technical facts that would purport a different conclusion. The plans speak for themselves and are very well detailed, provided with a sequence of construction narrative and a phasing approach that minimizes disturbances on a lot-by-lot basis. We have identified the common elements that will be the developer's responsibility to construct prior to the sale of specific lots. We have provided a construction cost estimate of those specific common elements that can be used to set a bond for those improvements. The town attorney has also made recommendations for legal remedies for the enforcement of the construction, operation, inspection, maintenance, and repair of the common stormwater devices associated with lots 2, 3, and 4. Now, regarding the Connecticut DEP Stormwater Quality Manual, the intervener's attorneys and consultants speak to this manual as if compliance with the manual is an absolute paramount requirement. They further lend confusion by implying if the applicant is not consistent with complying with all the sections of the manual, the commission cannot approve the application. This is a false narrative and claim. In addition, Mr. Trinket's claims since the biofiltration basins are not referenced in the manual, then the proposed design is not a legitimate treatment practice to reduce non-point pollutant loads. First, the Connecticut DEP manual does not have a monopoly on devices and names of treatment practices. One reason why it is a guidance document, because the industry is ever evolving. In fact, biofiltration is just a treatment process that is also known as biofilters, bioretention systems, and rain gardens. The process is just one facet of a range of accepted treatment technology elements that can be tailored into a design to optimize performance specific to a treatment objective. Not one size fits all conditions, and professional judgment is a necessary step in satisfying those treatment objectives. Other state manuals, such as New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Minnesota, all have reference to biofiltration as a basin or as a process element. Any suggestion by the interveners, experts, and legal counsel that we cannot claim to propose devices as legitimate best management practices to reduce pollution has no merit and generally is a weak argument. The third-party review consultant Land Tech has drawn the same conclusion. The Connecticut DEP 2004 Water Quality Manual, in fact, recognizes its intended use as a planning tool and a design guidance document to assist designers and the regulatory community in the application of BMPs. The manual recognizes there is no one way or set answer to solving a stormwater problem or issue. To the contrary, the manual, by how it is written and organized, provides guidance for various BMP tools and options that allows the user freedom to choose different ways and approaches to get to the solution. It also states the manual itself has no independent regulatory authority. Rather, it establishes guidelines that are implemented through a framework of existing laws and regulations. Those regulations are, in fact, the Inland Wetland and Watercourses regulations of the town of Roxbury, inclusive of and pursuant to sections 22-A 36 and 22A-45 of the Connecticut state statutes. Nowhere in the town regulations or in the statutes does it purport you must comply with this manual. The commission has full discretion on how to apply the manual to any project. Regardless, the proposal does adequately address components of the manual that are applicable to this application. Land Tech has drawn the same conclusion in the effectiveness of the treatment devices to satisfy the goals of the manual. The project, as a conclusion to what we have done through the manual and the practices we provided, the project provides nearly 250% of the water quality volume required and 150% of the groundwater recharge volume required. You have heard nothing from the interveners regarding those results that are identified in the report. The Connecticut DEP strategy looks for an 80% post-reduction load for total suspended solids upon stabilization. The TSS post-reduction load is estimated for the project at 87.5%. Now, before closing, it must be duly noted that of all the lots proposed, lot number 3 is the largest at 26.1 acres. A very viable lot with no direct or indirect impacts to wetlands, and it borders the intervener's land, of which 10.6 acres of conservation easement directly abuts their land. The intervener's focus has been clear throughout this and during the prior hearing process to eliminate that lot. In closing, it is our professional opinion the applicant's professional team has provided clear and undisputable evidence to draw a conclusion there are no environmental impacts that would cause irretrievable or irreversible loss to wetlands or watercourses due to the proposed activities. There are no prudent or feasible alternatives that would conclude a different outcome. This is based on quantifiable evidence-based science and supporting documentation supplied by Dymar, William Kenny and Associates, and Down to Earth. Each of our areas of expertise have provided all the documentation and testimony necessary for the commission to render an approval for this application. The plans, reports, and testimony satisfactorily address the requirements of the regulations, questions raised by the commission, Land Tech, and comments raised both by the intervener and the public at large. There are no direct impacts to the wetlands and watercourses, and the regulated activity is de minimis in the upland review area of only 0.49 acres on 64.8 acres. So in this spirit, we ask the commission to close the hearing and act favorably on the application. And with that, I will turn it back over to Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chairman, we do, Chris Smith for the record. Mr. Kenny is up next for our rebuttal, and I know I'd like to have him provide you with his commentary, the commission, and then if you have any questions, well, we still have him here, if we may.
Okay, absolutely, yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Marjorie,
Chairman.
we will get to you, Marjorie. We
I
will
want
get
you
to you.
to be sure to get to Mr. Manson.
Absolutely. Go ahead. But Mr. Kenny is on a tight time leash, so go
Understood.
ahead, Bill.
Understood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I have the ability to share my screen?
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks very much. Good evening, members of the commission and other attendees. I'm Bill Kenny, the principal of William Kenny Associates in Fairfield, Connecticut. I'm a professional wetland scientist and soil scientist and landscape architect. I'll keep it short. Mark did a great job of detailing many of the issues related to this project, and I agree with everything that he has said, and that I think it's very important that there are no activities proposed within any wetland or watercourse. There's only 1/2 acre of activities proposed within 100 feet of a wetland or a watercourse. That's less than 1% of the property. And based on that and other testimony that's been given over these many meetings, it is my professional opinion that this project will not result in an adverse impact to wetlands or watercourses, that the project satisfies the statutory factors for consideration that are provided in section 22A-41 of the Connecticut General Statutes and satisfies the criteria provided in your regulations. The project does not involve conduct that is reasonably likely to result in the unreasonable pollution, impairment, destruction of the air, water, including wetlands and watercourses, or other natural resources in the public trust of the state of Connecticut. And there is no feasible or prudent alternative that causes less or no environmental impacts relative to the pending application, as this project does not have an adverse impact to a wetland or watercourse. So it's not possible to have a project that would have less of an impact, adverse impact. With that said, I just want to, before finishing, return to just some general concepts about stormwater management and how that relates to potential adverse impacts to wetlands and watercourses. There's, again, there's two pieces to this. One is all the BMPs, the stormwater management measures that have been discussed in such great detail and minutia over the last number of meetings, how they're designed, how they're constructed, how they're maintained, who's going to do it. And that is very important, certainly is. But again, if you're not producing pollutants at a level that by themselves would have an adverse impact, then those BMPs become of less importance. And it is my professional opinion, and dozens of studies have shown it, that a development such as this with just 2.5% of impervious cover will not adversely impact the wetlands and watercourses. And it's just common sense. I know it's a bit of an inconvenient truth for the interveners, but if you had 20 square feet of impervious surface or 20 square acres, are you going to say, certainly we could agree 20 square acres is something to be concerned of, but are we going to say 20 square feet also is? I mean, you treat that at the same level? We are, with regard to our treatment, we are treating that at the same level. But I want you, this is the project as designed. And please, are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes. So, if we took all of the impervious cover in the proposed project, and you're seeing the aerial photo with the forest, and we put it into one square, that's what it would account for. Now, if we were proposing that, and then you needed to put a stormwater management feature between that and the wetland, that damn better work, because there's no buffer to protect that stream. We are more than 100 feet away with the vast majority of our improvements. They are spread out throughout the development. And really, this is similar to 2 plates on a dinner table and a washing machine. If you had one plate that sits on the table all night without being used, and then you have another plate that arrives with a full plate of food and is used throughout the dinner, our development is that clean plate. You put it in the washing machine just because it's the right thing to do, but it's clean. And really, you're not gaining anything of great significance, of great importance by putting it in the washing machine, but you do it because it's the right thing to do. The other plate really needs that cleaning. And if we were building a Home Depot or something like that with very significant high impervious cover, there would be the need for very high concern. But this project is so well protected. First, it does not generate pollutants at a level that will have an impact. And then second, irregardless, we're providing all of these BMPs that have been carefully designed, carefully reviewed by the intervener, by your third party engineer and wetland consultant. And it is going to be well maintained, and there's plenty of legal protections to ensure that. And so for all those reasons, it's my professional opinion that this project will not adversely affect a wetland or a watercourse. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Now you have to go to another meeting. Lucky you.
Yeah, I can stay.
Marjorie, you had some comments? Raise your hand.
I did. I wanted to make sure that Mr. Manson had an opportunity to speak, and then I guess I do have 1 or 2 more things.
Would you like Paul to go first?
Yes, please.
Okay. Mr. Manson, Paul, you out there?
Uh,
Go ahead, Paul. Paul, are you on mute? Doesn't say you're on mute. No, now you're on
Trying
mute.
to,
There you go.
trying to find the correct button. I had prepared remarks to make, but I am so offended by what I've been listening to for the last hour and a plus that I need to just state that had I not been here for the last 8 months, seen Mr. Lancor come to meeting after meeting, arguing for the rational method, arguing for the 4 iterations vociferously of his plan, and being wrong every single time. And not only wrong, but wrong-headed. That I would almost come to believe him. In point of fact, the contributions made by the interveners team have improved the catastrophic engineering originally proposed by Mr. Lancor. And the interveners' recommendations have only been echoed by Land Tech. I saw nothing original in their suggestions. I also do not begin to appreciate his attribution to me of trying to eliminate the 3rd lot, which I have never proposed, because it is somehow contiguous with my property. It is in fact contiguous. It is also the vernal pool. It is also the conservation easement, and it is minimal area. It is just another attempt to obfuscate an attack. And that is the same tactic that Mr. Smith took earlier, for the 3rd time, calling us the opposition. It was not clever nor subtle the first time. It was smarmy and unprofessional the 2nd time. And now I can't even begin to describe my feelings about it. Now I'm saying this because I get very little out of this. I'm trying to protect the wetlands. Mr. Trinkus has been trying to protect it. Mr. Klein has been trying to protect it. Ms. Shansky has been trying to protect it. And all I've listened to for an hour and 15 minutes will begin. Now, I would like to thank the board for understanding the likely dangers to the wetlands and for their open-mindedness and for their fortitude dealing with the volume of documents involved. I would particularly like to thank my team, Marjorie, Steve, and Mike. In 60 years of business, 60, I have not found a better, more knowledgeable or professional group. They were engaged to analyze the likely impact to the wetlands, not to advocate for or against the development. They did this with enthusiasm and diligence. Their impact has been substantial and important. They have done this in the face of a string of insults that is offensive and unwarranted. They have been accused of intimidation. They have been accused of hypocrisy. They have been accused of harping. They have been accused of stalling. They have been accused of misrepresentation. They have been, well, I'm remarked on that, no need to revisit it. They are now accused of misrepresentation and disingenuity by Land Tech. They have been insulted by omission from the email list sent out by Land Tech. And its engineer, I believe his name is Pryor, would not even accept Steve's phone call during the period between applications to discuss improving the system. Bizarrely, Land Tech maintains that their experience, along with Mark Lancor's, is sufficient, that no proof is needed as to the efficacy of the stormwater elements. However, insultingly, they say that Steve's experience was not so insufficient that the burden of proof was on him to prove that the system did not work. In other words, to prove a negative. This is the same land tech that stated that the vernal pool did not exist and the waters flowed from west to east, essentially uphill. They have opined that the current iteration of the plan is adequate. That is their opinion, and I do not question their belief. What I do question is their need to insult the intervener's team, as well as a presentation of prudent and feasible alternatives that are more, not less likely to impact the wetlands adversely.
Is
I
that
believe
it,
my
Paul?
time should be
I'm sorry.
just warming up. I can forestall the rest of the marks for a while. My question to you, I have spent hours reviewing the minutes, recordings, and letters from this public hearing and the immediately prior one. I have compiled a long list of minutiae that was prepared to present to the commission, but Marjorie Shansby talked me out of doing it to some extent. I will spare the board this as they have sat through all of this. From the beginning of the first meeting and through Mr. Lancor's misrepresentations at the last installment. These misrepresentations have been rendered moot to some extent by Attorney McTaggart's detailed plan. What I want to point out is one consistent thread through these proceedings. From the beginning, argument over the use of the rational method through the massive changes to the catastrophically bad stormwater treatment. Those changes were suggested by Steve Trinkus and echoed by Land Tech to the various iterations of his plan. Mark Lancor has been wrong, and he has been wrong-headed consistently. If someone is consistently wrong from the very beginning, if he doesn't understand the basic methodology and arguing at every turn must change almost every aspect of his engineering, submitting new plans over and over again while arguing that to a bird flying overhead is essentially the same, why should he be right now? And conversely, if someone has been right from the very beginning, whose every opinion has improved the first person's engineering, is it logical to assume that he is wrong now? However, despite the improvements to the engineering, there are still multiple problems with this system. And I will reserve the right to speak again. Thank you.
Thank you. Marjorie?
The reasons that Attorney McTaggart described for a homeowners association are exactly why there should be a homeowners association. None of us has a recollection of having been opposed to a homeowners association in the earlier iteration, but that's quite irrelevant because now we have this highly complex drainage system and obligations for future lot owners, even if only a small number. There are special laws governing small associations. It can be limited to the stormwater treatment issue, but it has an enforcement procedure, a statutory enforcement procedure that is missing. It is not a substitute for the town having its own remedy. That will come as an element of an approval if there were one. And we have also never had an answer to the question of why not 4 lots. Why not 4 lots? We got a description about, or we got some language about the uniqueness of property, which is a premise that is fundamental, of course, but it's not an answer to the question of why not 4 lots. So the undifferentiated certitude with which each version has been presented and proven not to be gives rise to a concern that the commission is assuming a gamble. You're taking a risk. And it would seem to me that the water quality for the citizens of Roxbury and the state of Connecticut hold a much higher place of importance in your jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Ross?
Mr. Smith?
Well, I'll defer to a commissioner if they have a question, and then I'll just do my conclusion, Mr. Chairman, if I may. But
Yeah,
I'll defer to,
commission
Commissioner.
members, now's the time. If you
Russ,
have questions,
I have a
need to ask.
question. I'd like to echo Attorney Shansky's question. I don't believe that the applicant has addressed the potentially feasible and prudent alternative of a 4-lot subdivision, perhaps one that allows the drainage for each lot to be contained within each lot. I haven't seen that addressed, and I'd like to hear their answer to that.
Mr. Chairman?
Andy's asking that question.
Oh, well, but
Yeah,
I
go
didn't
ahead.
want to, I didn't want to go out of order.
Oh
That's
no,
all.
he was asking it to you. Go ahead.
It's like the judge. I wait to be recognized. So, but
I'm not
to
a
respond to
judge.
that, I was going to include that in my conclusion, because it does go to the various standards that are required, and I would like to address those in a moment. But at the outset, when you're dealing with a feasible and prudent alternative, and well, if I may, if I can do just some of my conclusionary statements, because I think it all ties together to
No,
addressing.
I would like you to just answer the questions directly, so we don't mix things up.
I'm sorry. So the feasible and prudent alternative, a couple of things. I think it's important to remind the commission that when you denied the 12-lot subdivision, you had to recommend alternatives to the applicant because you indicated alternatives were available, and that's required by state statute. And that was also generated with the Inland Wetlands Task Force back in 95, 96. And that's one thing I can take credit for, because I brought it up, because what was happening is that commissions, and I cited one in the New Haven area near Roxbury, but it wasn't Roxbury, where after multiple applications, we just kept being told, well, why don't you go down from 50 to 20, or why don't you go to 30, or whatever the number was, or you can just do a feasible and prudent alternative. That's what was happening. We weren't even given numbers. And so the legislature said, if you're going to deny, saying that there's a feasible and prudent alternative, you have to tell the applicant what you think the alternative is. And that's right in the statute. That's, I respectfully submit, why you did it. Attorney McTaggart drafted your denial letter, and you recommended the removal of 2 lots, lot number 6 and lot number 7. So it would go down to 10. We submitted to you 2 feasible and prudent alternatives, one a 10-lot subdivision, and then one an 8. And my client looked at those and felt that they could still do better relative to a potential wetlands impact. And they submitted this 6-lot subdivision. We've heard from the applicant also, if you recall, the intervener, also, if you recall, that a no build is a feasible and prudent alternative. And I think everybody here on the commission knows that's not the law in our state. If you are not creating an adverse impact, and you can't have a feasible and prudent alternative that's going to cause less or none environmental impact, and you're not causing it in the first place, that's the end of the story. We have 6 lots. There's no reason to go to 4. There's no reason to go to 2. I suppose, as it's been indicated by the intervener, we could go to none. My client can just donate their property to the trust, conservation trust, or give it to their neighbor. Those are not practical, feasible, and prudent alternatives. And the word prudent was also defined to include economic and otherwise being economically reasonable. And the home builders and the developers council were the people that insisted that that be added to the statutory language concerning feasible and prudent alternative, because the commission has to consider some of that when you're looking at knocking off lots or building size. But in this particular case, what this commission is confronted with is a simple question. Is the proposal going to result in an adverse impact to a wetland or a watercourse? And I think it's very clear to everybody on this remote hearing that there's no activity in a wetland or a watercourse. There is some activity in an upland review area, and that's depicted on the plans that Mr. Lancourt and Mr. Kenny walked you through, not the coloration that was presented to you by Mr. Klein, the markup graphic. That's not the upland review area and regulated activities. And a couple of things with the burden of proof. Attorney Shansky recognizes, everybody in this remote phone realizes that the burden is on the applicant to demonstrate that it complies with your regulations. Section 10.2 and 22A41 of the Connecticut General Statutes. Your section 10.2 mirrors 22A41, the factors for consideration. I'm sure it was built, appears to me to be the model DEEP, now DEEP, guidelines that were generated for commissions to use throughout the state. And I know in my town, that's what we used for years and years. There is, again, nothing proposed in the wetlands. There's activity in the upland review area. There has been testimony from the applicant's engineer, Mr. Lancourt, Mr. Kenny, our wetland scientist, as well as Land Tech, wetland scientist and an engineer. No adverse impact to a wetland. There's no reason to go to 4 lots. Absolutely none. Okay. And as far as the intervention pleading, Mr. Chairman, the burden is on the intervener when you file an intervention pleading under 22A19, and they have to identify and quantify an actual harm to the environment where it's reasonably likely to result in the unreasonable pollution. I'm not going to regurgitate the entire statutory framework, but the burden is on the applicant to generate expert testimony. And that applies to wetlands as well. Attorney McTaggart's very familiar with the Riverbend case. My old firm had that. And in that case, just pure speculation that there might be a release of pesticides in an old tobacco field when it was being dug up for residential housing, to say that, well, there might be a release of the pesticides and the soil and erosion control measures might fail. And if that all happens, well, there's going to be an adverse impact to the wetlands. Our state Supreme Court said, no, that's not enough. You have to identify and quantify the harm. And with all due respect, all we've heard from relative to issues with this proposal is that the systems may fail. And when they fail, they're going to result in an adverse impact. We heard that it's reasonably likely that the systems aren't going to be maintained, and then there's going to be an adverse impact. That's not the standard. The standard is you have to identify what's wrong with the proposal, and then explain how it's going to create harm. That hasn't been done here, and I respectfully submit again the testimony from the applicant's consultants as well as the commission. You retain Land Tech; they're very well respected to review this for you and to provide you with their opinion, their expert opinion. And I don't have to speak for Land Tech. They've already provided you with their reports. But again, they don't see an issue with this. And there's been in the declaration is certainly, as Mr. Manson indicated.
Chris, I just wanted an answer to the 4-lot question.
I thought we were doing our rebuttal.
Because Andy asked a question. I wanted them to answer it. I think in this whole public hearing, the people who have been able to speak the least and state what they need to know has been on people on the commission. We need to let the commission ask questions. All of you have spoken 3, 4, 8 times. I've been sitting here for 8 months. I need my commission to answer questions now. So my commission members, if you need to ask questions now, if there's anything unclear in your mind, You need to get it clear by asking questions. I need the answers to be short and sweet. We know, we've heard this. It's in the record 50 times. The judge is going to fall asleep reading this record. So please, next commission member, do you have a question?
Russ, I'd like to be able to say something.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Hard to get a word in here.
Yeah.
Okay, I have 3 questions, or I want answers to three items. One is, it's stated by Mr. Klein and I think by the interveners that the storm drainage system is needlessly complex. I'd like some clarification on that.
From Mr.
them.
Klein, Rob, or who's the question?
Well, whoever wants to answer it.
Well, I think Mr. Klein should be, right, Mike? Because you're the one who's, would you explain why you stated that?
Sure, Michael Klein. I think that it can be answered in a number of ways. One of the ways to answer it is that we're dealing with a system that addresses water quality on 4 lots, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That includes 4 water quality basins, a private culvert under the state highway, rain gardens, and underground treatment units. That is an exceedingly complex system for handling 4 residential lots.
It's 6.
Well, no, I'm just talking about
you're right.
these
You're right.
4.
Yep.
But it also applies.
3.
The numbers get bigger when you deal with all 6 of the lots. It includes 4 rain gardens and 12 underground treatment units. So that's complex. The construction process is complex. It's self-contradictory, as I testified earlier, because in some places it says certain things need to be done at the beginning, and in other places it says certain things need to be done at the end. If they're done at the beginning, the systems aren't going to work right. If they're done at the end, the systems won't treat the stormwater that's generated earlier. The fact that for this small subdivision, this very unusual stormwater declaration is required. That's also an indication that it's needlessly complex. The fact that stormwater on one lot is treated on another lot is also an indication that this is needlessly complex.
Okay, Rob, your second question.
I think there should be a detailed, let's see, hold on, let me look at my notes. Okay, a detailed itemization of the components of the storm drainage system for the bonding created by the engineers, and maybe we have this already, for the contractor to price. Not just kind of such a general pricing on all the items of the storm drainage. And I would think that Mr. Lancourt could supply that. I mean, I'm talking about a real detailed itemization of the storm drainage system for pricing.
Yeah. So you're saying how much pipe, and so there's a price per foot, and actually there's a price per foot for installation, like there is for paving. It's $3 a square yard. It's the industry standards. That did the applicant submit a new? I thought I saw something submitted where there was a more detailed pricing.
I think Mr. Lancourt can address that, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Horrigan. Go ahead, Commissioner Horrigan. Go ahead, Mark.
The additional information that was submitted was in response to the sediment and erosion control to make sure that those various components were included in the contractor's estimate. And we did a takeoff, and then we asked the contractor to verify if these were included, and most of the items were included, and there were a few items that were not, and then we added those numbers in submission to a document that we provided last Thursday that identified an additional $10,000 should have been added to that price for various components regarding E&S controls. To address the question regarding the components, the detailed components, the estimate that was provided was detailed by a contractor who is very experienced in the field of this site. And because he's done work on the site, he's done work in the area, extremely familiar with Roxbury. And he detailed out a line item by line item for the various components. For example, detention basin number 4.
Do you have that, Mark? Could you share your
All that
screen?
information was submitted as submitted for the last hearing. So it's in the public record. That detailed estimate provided by Artist Excavation is part of the record. And it was submitted also to your consultant, Land Tech, who did a cursory review of that estimate. And it was their opinion that that estimate was reasonable for the components that we provided. It wasn't a lump sum item. They broke the parts out into parts that are manageable parts. So it's very, it's detailed from that aspect. It's detailed from, I got 6 feet of pipe or this or that. No, it wasn't, because it was broken down by the components. For example, basin 1 or basin 4, and then the construction of driveway for lot 4 for the 300 feet. Those numbers are there. They were, again, presented to your consultant. Your consultant responded to it that they believed that those numbers were reasonable. And they also suggested for a percentage for a contingency allowance, which we had no objection to in terms of covering any escalation costs or that sort of thing. So we're
Okay.
comfortable with the numbers.
All right. Rob, does that answer your question?
Well, I just don't think, I believe I saw that at the last meeting, but it just didn't seem like it was detailed enough. And, you know, I just don't want anything to be missed on the bonding of this. I think it should be looked at a little closer by the engineers.
Okay. Your third question?
Just about the common driveway approach. I kind of forget how that went, what we discussed, how we discussed that. Is that something that's applied for after, if the Wetland Commission approves this, or is it something that can be talked about now?
It could be talked about, but I believe the applicant actually should answer this, but I believe they went to planning and planning said to come here first. Is that correct, Mr. Smith?
That's my understanding, Mr. Chairman. And
Because it's not in our regulations in planning right now. It's not allowed. So
Correct.
you need to go for a variance. To go for a variance, you need to get wetland approval before you could approach the planning commission on anything.
And it's
Well,
sorry.
But it's kind of a catch-22. Why would the applicant go for a variance if we approve the non-common driveway approach?
I think they were told that's the way it has to be by our planning commission. And
that's correct.
I'm not going to argue with them. That's their process. We need to respect it.
But can we get some assurance from the applicant that they will try that?
No, you need to vote on this application as is.
Okay.
That's what you got to do, because right now it's not allowed in the regulations. It's not even a feasible and prudent alternative because it's not allowed. They have to get a variance. So you need to vote on what this application is presenting.
And just for the record, well, I think it's for the reasons that the chair's already indicated, and I think Commissioner Horgan, that was our response the last time. It's not permitted by the regulations as provided by the regulations. If that could change in the future, but right now it's not. And this is what we're again applying for site development within the context of your applicable municipal zoning and planning regulations.
Okay, Rob, anything else?
I'm good.
Sue, are you good? Do you have questions, Sue?
I actually do, Ross,
Go
but
ahead.
kind of it's pertaining to something that Rob had brought up at the last meeting. And I'm trying to, with all our volume of, I'm trying to get everything straight. But he had asked, I think, because there was, I believe, Michael Klein, and Rob, tell me if I'm remembering this right, had showed a disturbance map.
That's correct.
And I think we had asked, we wanted more information on what, because we have the, what do we have? We have, like, they tell us the 2.4%.
Yeah, on the record, it's 2.4% total disturbance of
But
64 acres, yeah.
But I'm kind of asking Rob, because I think we were kind of wanting to know, because remember that brown map that he had showed and we had asked further comment on that, I think, Rob, you had?
Right. What came out at the last meeting was the brown map. Rob's question was
But I don't, was that
it's not
answered?
showing the whole site. It's not showing the whole site. It's focused right in where all the development is going to occur. So that's the question Rob asked.
And did I miss the answer on that, or I
No,
thought
but Michael Klein could answer any question you have on that.
No, I think the question was addressed to Mr. Kenny as to what the total disturbance was going to be on the site, not just in that one area that was depicted. And I don't think they ever got back to me. It got back to us on that.
Right, that's what I think, Rob. I think that you had asked that, but I don't think they ever answered that.
It's Chris Smith. I believe that that was there was a percentage. Mark, do you know that percentage? I think it's 2 and change.
2.4%. I know it like the back of my hand.
There you go. Thank you. I thought it was somewhere in the 2.5 range, which I think might be that little box that was shown. Mr. Kenny was just walking it through.
Does that answer your question, Sue? Do you have any other questions?
I just somehow thought that, because we have had that 2.4%, but I thought that we were looking at further information on that, but I could be wrong. That's all I just wanted to bring up. I was kind of asking.
No, my question on that was it's not really showing the whole site, so it was kind of misleading that it's just showing where the development's occurring and not the whole 64 acres.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Absolutely, Mike.
Clarify.
Please.
The 2.4% number, if it's accurate, and I don't know whether it is or not, is
there reason
kind of
to believe it's
kind of
not
irrelevant.
accurate?
No, I don't know whether it is or isn't. It is kind of irrelevant. The question is, where is that 2.4% occurring, and how is the stormwater being treated? I think Mr. Kenny's whole discussion and Mr. Lancour's on this issue is a bit of a red herring. The issue is that this disturbance is occurring on steep slopes that drain to the wetlands and on soils that are highly erodible. And there's a substantial amount of earthwork that's occurring. Some of these cuts are very deep. The driveway proposed slopes are very steep. So the devil is in the details. And the question is not what percentage of the site. If the site was 1,000 acres, this percent disturbance would be 0.1%. But that's not the relevant issue. The relevant issue is all of this work occurring in a very small area, requiring substantial amounts of regrading on highly erodible soils that drain to the wetlands. That's the question. That's the,
Yep.
the issue.
Sue, does that answer your question?
Well, I think it reframes it, but
Okay.
yeah,
Do you have any other questions?
not right now, Russ.
Okay. Remember, once we close the hearing, we cannot ask any of the consultants or lawyers any questions. Does anybody have questions for our consultant, Mr. Allen Lantek, Mr. Allen, Mr. Pryor? Anybody have questions for them? I do. Chris and Robert, you've read the letter from Ms. Shamsky again, the most recent one. Has your opinion changed on what you've heard tonight? Has your opinion, your conclusion changed based on everything you've heard tonight and what she outlined in her letter with what the problems are with this application?
I guess I'll try and go first. I don't think so. I think our findings were pretty much summed up in our last letter. I think it was dated February 2nd, in which we kind of addressed each of the concerns that were brought up, the major concerns. And again, just to reiterate from the beginning of this process, we stated that there's no direct impact on wetlands. You know that. That's been said over and over. There's very small amount of impact to the upland review area. So I think in our initial letter, we said that the only impacts that would be, a potential would be either from sedimentation and erosion during construction or from inadequate stormwater management. So that was really the focus of our review over the many months and over these, several hearings. So we just wanted to make sure that ocean sediment controls were up to par. We had several comments which were addressed by the applicant. We had no issues with the erosion and sediment control plan. And then stormwater management, we would go back and forth quite a bit. And then I think our final conclusion, and Rob can correct me if I'm wrong, was that the way the systems are designed, they meet the general guidelines for water quality management and water peak rates of runoff control. There's lots of discussion that they're overly complex. I'm not sure that's the case. I think in any subdivision, you're going to find a number of management measures that are going to be provided in the treatment train. There may be basins, there might be underground systems, but I don't think this is terribly unusual for a residential subdivision to have those type of components and a mix of components. The one thing that may be unusual, which we did address in our letters, is that some of these components are on lots that are not controlled by the owner. So that kind of brought up the whole question of how are these going to be constructed and maintained, and over the course
Yep.
of the
So
hearings.
Chris, you do a lot of work in Fairfield County, and where there's a lot of these homeowner agreements and the declaration that Gail's put forward. Have you seen in your experience or Robert's experience where those don't work, where homeowner agreements? I'm sure there's always one or two. There's always a lawsuit. I'm sure, but do you find that rare that they don't work, or do they work? I mean, you must have a ton of them in Fairfield County.
Yeah, I don't have any direct knowledge of ones that have not worked, and maybe Rob, I'll let you opine on that, whether or not you've had any experience.
No, I think that typically they work out there. Like you said, Mr. Chairman, there's always cases that where somebody doesn't, one party to the agreement or to the declaration or to the what's on the land records doesn't hold up their end, and yeah, that's those things, they do end up in court. I would say that there's no agreement that's going to be perfect. And regardless of what, anytime any development is done, you're subject to this kind of a situation. And I'm not certain that even if the elements, stormwater elements were all contained on their own lots, whether that would make a great deal of difference. If that particular lot owner does not maintain the stormwater management on their lot, sometimes it's tough to enforce that. And it's part and parcel with putting these stormwater requirements on the development of these lots. And the unfortunate side is that the enforcement of the maintenance is challenging.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on the commission have any other questions? Okay, so we'll go to Suzanne K. You have your hand up.
Hi, thank you. Suzanne Kerner, resident owner of property number 197 North Street. I am on the west side of the proposed development. I do have, I am a member of the public that did suggest a reasonable and prudent alternative, which was to develop the land beautifully parallel to the wetlands rather than vertically. And Attorney Smith asks and put forward the question to us to identify and quantify harm. Well, everything runs downhill. That has been proven. So we'll end it there. Everything runs downhill. Another question would be, this would be academic in nature, if this subdivision doesn't have a major road in the middle of the treatment on one side that's these places are dependent on, and all of the construction of the individual lots. It goes under a state highway. And recently, late fall, we had a car crash, one of many I'll mention, but the latest car crash sent the car over the guardrails into pretty much where this thing is going to be constructed. So what are the what are the allowances for that? I mean, we keep talking about the common subdivision, and so on and so forth, but this is a very busy road, in between the logistics and the nice homes up on the hill. So yes, there is a prudent and reasonable alternative, and it's a beautiful piece of property, and it could very nicely hold a couple of homes if it's developed parallel to the wetlands, leaving those beautiful ledges that will act as a natural barrier to so many of these problems. And so many issues would definitely be avoided. I think that it was brought up again, the concentration of the development, in one small section. It's constantly said, well, it's 64 acres, it's 64 acres with only 6 houses, and only, the fact is, all the houses are built really right on top of the wetlands. Everything runs downhill, and please reconsider both the subsurface water course as well as the surface water course. And I did submit a letter on February 5th to the commission asking for a yes or no answer, as if the subsurface water courses are protected by the same guidelines, processes, and environmental laws as the above ground water courses and rivers and streams and such. Thank you everyone for the opportunity. I'm very concerned about the treatment of all of this, with Route 199 right in the middle there. I live there. I know about the car wrecks. I know about, there's that little patch of wetland that's going to be right below number 1, number 2. And there is that wetland right on the side of the road there that they will have to figure out what to do with. below that stone wall, in between the stone wall and the highway. Lots to be said. Thank you so much for your time and service.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. Anybody else from the public who wants to speak, who hasn't spoken before?
Russ, can I just ask a quick question? I don't know if this has been addressed yet, and if it has, I apologize. But I was just wondering, either in an agreement or in the bonding, if it states when the inspection of the stormwater drainage has to be done, and if there's some sort of enforcement to just ensure that it is done, and who controls that?
It would be in the declaration that gave.
Okay, so it wouldn't be something that we would have to worry about being done?
No.
Okay, that's it.
Anybody else? Margaret? Paul Manson?
I'm sorry. Russ, this is Margaret. I sent a question. I sent a chat, which is my comment. We've seen the drawing, so it just points up the difference between how things look on paper and how they look once the machinery is in there. I have a real doubts that 6 driveways can be built carefully enough in this space not to affect water negatively. So that was my chat comment. I'm off now.
All right, thank you, Margaret. Paul, you wanted to say something else?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to finish my remarks, and then I will be out of your hair. Bear with me a moment.
Go ahead. Paul, go ahead.
I'm just gathering my thoughts. I have a concussion, so you'll have to bear with me. It's a little difficult. We're just about ready to vote, I suspect, and the decision of the board is vital to the protection of these wetlands. I am proposing a path for the board that is the one least likely to significantly harm the wetlands, but still protects the owner's rights. The commission is essentially left with 2 choices: approve or deny the application, and each choice has consequences. If you deny and Mr. Trinkus and Mr. Klein are correct, you have simply saved the wetlands and the consequences of its damage. Moreover, Lancor or another engineer can revise the design, reduce the project scope to conform to the alternatives already proposed, and reapplied. You will not deny the opportunity for the owner to offer a plan having less disturbance of the terrain and the waters. You approve and the engineering is faulty. Mr. Trinkus and Mr. Klein are correct, as they have been shown throughout this process. You are accepting that the wetlands are very likely to be significantly impacted. Water quality impaired, soils eroded, species endangered, and the river likely polluted or at least significantly warmed. Those are in addition to the consequences enumerated by Mr. Smith. If you approve and Dymar's engineering is better than our experts think it is, the wetlands may get all the protection the law allows. If you deny and Dymar is correct, they must still improve their engineering and or reduce the project scope, which will provide additional layers of wetland protection, and the applicant can reapply. If the loss of lots causes the applicant to make less profit, well, to paraphrase the chair, it is not the board's job to maximize the developer's profit. One final point, it is unfortunate that we are faced with the loss of conservation of this unusual property. I know the chair and many others have worked hard to make conservation happen. Due to the character of the land and the scope of the development, it is unlikely the board will have an application such as this again, one where its decision is this crucial to the protection of the wetlands of this quality. I suggest that the correct decision leads to denial, re-engineering, reduction in scope, and resubmission. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. That's my video. Oh, there we are. Okay. I'm having technical there we go. Okay. Anybody else from the public? I think everybody's talked out. So we'll Jill?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Mike.
Mr. Horgan asked a very good question that perhaps it's best to get Land Tech's opinion on. Since they're your consultant, maybe they can offer you this opinion as part of your deliberations.
No, they can't. We can't ask them questions during deliberations. Can't ask anybody, believe it or not. I found that out in another wetland meeting that I was involved in another town. The consultant cannot consult after the hearing.
Well, then maybe you need to get an answer to it within the bounds of the hearing.
Well, go ahead. What's the what was
the question? Is whether the elements in the preliminary pricing and the minor modification that was submitted later include all of the elements that are part of the stormwater management system, and that your attorney suggested needed to be bonded, specifically basins 2 and 3.
Okay, I got that.
Specifically, all of the construction of the driveways and so forth.
Yep. Mr. Pryor, could you answer that question for us?
Yeah. Okay. For the record, Robert Pryor, professional engineer and land surveyor with Land Tech. I do believe that they had all the elements that were the common elements of the stormwater system, that were the common elements that needed to be bonded. There's obviously other elements on some of the other lots that aren't, quote, common elements to the overall storm system that weren't bonded, but those are elements that are on the individual lots that aren't part of the sort of the overlap of the elements that go to from one lot to another.
Can you show me where the basins 2 and 3 are covered, or where the restoration of basins 1 and 4 are covered?
No, I won't. If the commission, we've already opined on the bond estimate. We've suggested that there be some contingencies added to that. If the commission wants to be more sure that all these elements are covered, put a larger contingency on it for your own peace of mind. We feel that the bond estimate as provided is adequate.
Thank you, Mr. Pryor. Okay. Ms. Sloan, would you like to speak?
I would, thank you.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jill Sloan, owner of the Woods in Roxbury. First, I would really like to thank the commission for all of your hard work, all of your time and patience through this application. I know it's been a lot of time, so thank you very much. I would also like to thank Karen Eddy for keeping up with all the files. I know this has also been a lot of work, Karen, and also to Julie Katie for organizing all of these meetings on Zoom. I'll make this very brief. We had a plan previously for 12 lots. The commission denied that plan and essentially told us to get rid of 2 lots and to come back. We took our time and we decided, after much evaluation, to come back with only 6 large lots with no road, no wetlands crossings on 64.8 acres. That's 6 lots on 64.8 acres spread out very nicely. We took the time, we listened to the commission, we listened to Land Tech and everyone on this Zoom call's input. And we then made an additional 3 to 4 revisions culminating in this final plan. Everyone on this Zoom call should be very proud, as we are very proud of this plan. And whether you were for the plan or against it, your input and comments were carefully considered in making this final plan a great plan, and we are very happy about that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jill. Any other comments? Okay, Miss, hello?
Russ,
Yes?
I'm sorry to do this, but I don't have anything further to say. I think Margaret, Marjorie, Suzanne, everybody's, Michael, everybody's been great. I want to ask Jill, what about her last subdivision? Did she just walk away from that? How successful was that one? The one in Southbury? How many houses does she have? How many did she plan to have?
Mr. Chairman, that clearly is not relevant to the
No,
application.
it's not relevant.
I take it back.
Liz, listen,
Sorry.
let's keep this nice and let's keep this on this, okay?
All right, I'm
It's
sorry.
not who we are in Roxbury.
I got more too.
Well, do it on your own time, not on mine. Thank you.
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just want to say that contrary to the characterization, if the commission reviews the petition to intervene, you'll find the allegations of reasonable likelihood of unreasonable pollution. And you will have heard from Mr. Klein and Mr. Trinkus affirmative declaratory statements of that harm. So it's your decision, but from the intervener's perspective, not only have we improved the plan, but we've proven our claims. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, you want to close, please?
I'll make every effort to, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And make
members
it
of
as
the
short
commission.
and sweet as possible because we've heard this over and over and over again.
And I just, in conclusion,
Yeah,
respectfully request that the commission approve the regulated activities. That's what we're looking at, associated with a 6-lot subdivision on 60 some odd acres. This proposal before you this evening. Respectfully submit, based on the expert testimony before you, including the applicant's experts as well as your own experts at Land Tech, that the proposal does not result in any identified or quantified adverse impact to a wetland or watercourse, nor is it reasonably likely to result in the unreasonable pollution, impairment, or destruction to the air, water, or other natural resource. No identifiable or quantified harm that would result in such unreasonable pollution, etc., has been provided to you in expert testimony. And in addition, there is not a feasible and prudent alternative that will create less or no environmental impact. Please remember that my client, as my client indicated, 12-lot subdivision, denied, told to consider losing 2 of the lots. My client is back not with 10, as recommended by the commission 2 years ago, but with 6. And there, again, there's no expert testimony that there's an adverse impact. There's no reason for my client to go to 5, 4, 3, or anything less, or certainly to not do anything on the property, which was suggested at one point in time. Those aren't feasible and prudent alternatives. There is no adverse impact, and I would defer to your town attorney in providing you with advice on those legal issues while you're deliberating. And on behalf of my client and the team, we thank the commission and your consultants at Land Tech for your time and consideration in processing this proposal, especially in such a transparent way that you've taken the time to do. So thank you very much. Stay safe.
Thank you. Commission members, any more questions for anybody? Because it's now or never. Otherwise, we're closing this public hearing and we'll go into deliberations at another meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Gail.
I would like Rob Horgan, we had an inquiry about whether he had had watched and listened to all of the hearings all the way through this process, because he had been recused for reasons having nothing to do with this present application. I'd like Rob to make a statement on the record about that.
Thanks for reminding me. I forgot.
That's all right.
Rob, would you state why you stepped down on the last application?
On the first application, I stepped down because I was using the engineer on at least four jobs at the time. And I thought, even though I didn't think I needed to step down, I thought it would appear best if I did.
And the engineer was not Dymar. It was Paul Szymanski.
No, it was Paul Szymanski, Arthur Howland and Associates.
Right.
And I did attend all the meetings of the previous application.
And Rob, you feel like you can make a fair decision on this application without conflicts?
Yes, I do.
Did I forget anything else, Gail?
The only thing I was going to say, I was going to respond to one of the comments that the declaration does incorporate the sequences of construction that will be approved by this commission that are part of the plans. So there are two things going on here. There's a declaration, and then there's plan approvals that include sequence of construction and maintenance and repair. So it's all of that is not in the declaration. It's incorporated by reference by whatever is approved.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Does any other commission member feel they have any kind of conflict of interest? Remember, you never have to step off a board. It's your decision and your decision only, other than if you have a financial interest in the project or if you're a neighbor of the project. Other than that, it's really up to you whether you feel you could be on a commission and make a fair vote. And I know everybody on this commission, and like Rob did last meeting, he did it not for him. He didn't need to step down. He did it for the good of the town and the commission, and that's the kind of people we are on this commission. So if nobody has anything else.
Wait, Russ, I'm sorry. Pain in the neck, me.
Go ahead, Sue.
I just want to make sure too, because there's that, like I said, once again, me trying to get all the paperwork straight that's come through on this application. Because we went back and forth about open space and then the conservation easement. And because before we close this, I want to make sure that I know that they had sent paperwork with a proposal for that conservation easement. And was that the last paperwork we had on it? This is probably going back about 3 meetings.
Yes, Sue, and what we heard on the record at the last meeting was it was more of a planning commission deal, and we really shouldn't concern ourselves on which way they go, because planning, in other words, they're proposing a way that doesn't exactly meet the way our planning commission does it, but that's really the planning commission's decision. Right, Gail? I mean, in a nutshell.
Actually, the conservation easement they proposed is pretty similar to what the planning commission does, but the planning commission is usually the board that imposes conservation easements. The wetlands protection is the wetlands protection for these areas, no matter what.
Okay, does that answer your question, Sue? And of course, you could ask Gail these kinds of questions when we deliberate.
Oh, okay, because that's kind of, because that was part of the thing where I would want to
You
make.
can ask Gail any question that's on the public record. So you can't ask her a question about something that wasn't discussed
Okay, okay.
But you could
all right.
ask her questions about bonds, conservation easements, and legal
Okay.
issues that were all discussed.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
And if I may, Suzanne, also, this commission might decide that they want to recommend a conservation easement. When you get to deliberation, it's something that can be discussed.
Right.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else? I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing. Do you guys want to keep it open?
So moved. I move we close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll remind the commission again that you can't have any ex parte communication, and you should not have during the whole process. And I think we've all been on the commission long enough to really know that. You know, for Sierra, just so you know, during any application, you really can't talk to other commission members unless it's in public. That's why we do site walks with only 2 people, because over 2 people, it's a meeting and we'd have to post the meeting. When we do site walks, we can't really ask any questions other than, is that flag for the septic system, that kind of stuff. Just so you know, it's everything we do needs to be out front in the public, and nobody should be talking about this case with each other or with people from the public. So you make your own decisions and not get out of, you know, not mess us up with courts. So when would we like to have deliberations? Do we want to do it at the next meeting? I kind of want to do it at a separate meeting, but I don't know how the commission feels about that. I'm looking at March 9th in 2 weeks, where we deliberate and we ask ourselves what we're feeling.
March 9th is open for me.
I'm good with March 9th.
So I think Tuesday nights, you said usually you're free, or did I get that wrong?
Yeah, March 9th is good.
Okay. Okay, does yeah, I guess we're good then. Then I will set the public hearing for March 9th on Zoom at 7 p.m. to deliberate. So would you all prefer 7:30? What works better?
Either one's fine.
Either one works.
Yeah,
Russ-
let's do 7.
Earlier, yeah.
Russ, when are we gonna though do that other special meeting too? The notice of violation.
I think we should have them both on the same night, because France shouldn't take long.
Okay, so.
I'm going to ask John and Gail to make sure that we submit the consent order or the cease and desist 10 days before the 9th. Could we do that? Yeah. It's going to be tight. We got to get that out by Friday. It's got to be held within 10 days, right, Gail? Within 10.
It should be held within 10 days.
Yeah, okay, we got time if we do both on the 9th. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience and your time. This has been a first in Roxbury, the longest public hearing there ever was, mostly due to COVID, because the governor extended things. I hope he doesn't do any more. And we get back to 65 days to get these things completed. But thank you, everybody, for your time and effort. And we'll see you all on the 9th.
Good night.
Bye.
Would you like to make an adjourn?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, adjourn. Looking to adjourn.
Is there a second to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Vice Chairman, I Declare the meeting closed.
Good job, Andy.
Good night.
You.
Good night, everybody.